I even get clients that come and talk to me about what other advisors have said or recommended or didn't recommend. And what I often find is that many advisors are out there giving clients advice on many different topics. And most of the time, the advice that is given is for the advisor's benefit and not the client, or so more so for the advisor than the client. To many of you, physicians, and I know I speak with you physicians every day, and most of you try to get the information that you need in order to minimize your taxes or to build your wealth in a very effective way. And you begin to look at various articles, YouTube sites, listen to gurus, go to seminars, etc. And one of the things that you want to be careful of is to taking that advice and implementing it without having all the facts. And what are the facts? The facts are you. What's good for you? So when many advisors are giving general information, it's giving you a general way that this is a concept that works. But how does that concept work for you? So unless that advisor is sitting down with you individually, asking you a series of questions among a multitude of areas about what's important to you, what's your barriers to entry, what is your legacy plan, what is your investment strategy, what is your tax strategy. All these questions about you should be asked before there's any advice given. And that, even me, I started my career long ago, and at that particular time, I wanted to always impress my client on exactly how much I did know about various subjects in the financial service field, the real estate field, the tax field, etc. And so a client would call me on the phone and they'd say, Shawn, what do you think about this? Should I do this or should I do that? And I always just started talking off the top of my head and trying to impress them, showing them how much information that I have, and how many different facets of information that I have. And invariably, the advice that I would give them, they would call me back 3, 4 months later and say, Shawn, that advice didn't fare well, that didn't work well, or it didn't work, etc. And then I began to start asking more questions at that time. And invariably, every time I would tell you that the client would say something, I said, well, if you would have told me that, I wouldn't have told you that. I would have told you this. And so it just serves as a testament that even a well-seasoned professional, when a client begins to ask you questions and that professional begins to give the client that advice, but that's generic advice. It may not be for the person that's receiving the advice. So I say, before you begin to give advice to a client, make sure that you know enough about them. So here's a video that I recorded talking with Dr. Vicki Rackner about this same issue. Hope you like it. And remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Shawn, I talk with doctors who are thinking that maybe they'd like to invest in real estate. They take this idea to their financial advisor, and the financial advisor says no. What do you say to that, doctor?
Well, just that circumstance alone is where my brain first goes off the top of my head. So many advisors advise their clients not to do things without checking the details and the facts. I don't ever advise a client to do anything until I know enough information. And it's very difficult in most cases because clients don't want you to know everything about it before you give your expert opinion. But you have to refrain from doing so. Now, the financial advisor could have been looking at something in their financial portfolio that shows that, hey, you got too much of a barrier to entry on one of my last videos. And I spoke about the barrier to entry into real estate, and many people have different barriers. It could be economic circumstances, it could be credit, debt to income ratio, it could be investment asset availability. It could be a lot of different barriers. It could be simple, I don't know how. But because most physicians spend a lifetime in college to get their degrees and then finally get into their careers, they're already late on the retirement planning chart. And real estate happens to be one of those things that you can collapse timeframes. You can actually build that bridge of where you are behind, because most doctors start off behind because just the education to get into the career, they're behind. And so real estate poses a great deal of opportunity for them to get all that time back. And so I would not advise anyone to just blanketly say you shouldn't invest in real estate. But I would caution anyone advising someone to just go into real estate, because most people don't know all of the facets of real estate that you can actually be in. And I think a good survey of that is the starting point.
Well, I had a thought that was not quite as kind. And that is, could it be that there are financial advisors who are putting their own interests above their clients' interests?
It's all the
Because
time.
if they take some resources, if they liquidate, if they sell stock, that means that the financial advisor is managing less.
I tell you, I'm a proponent of saying there's a lot of flaws in our current system. And that's one of the origin points of why I do what I do, because I saw this in the industry where people were getting conflicting advice from multiple professionals. And here's the key: not intentionally, these professionals, or some not knowingly, giving out information that is detrimental to their client. But most of the advisors that I have met in life on both sides of the pendulum look out for their own best interest before their client. So if there's something that a client could be doing, the client says, hey, I want to move 100,000, 200,000 from my portfolio over here. Well, obviously that's going to be discouraged, because they don't want that asset to be removed out of their asset under management. They want to keep that in the system. And that's wrong, because I just think that's wrong, inherently wrong, right? But yeah, you're right. Most are going to steal their clients away from doing things that money's going to go out the door. We see this a lot in spouses too, by the way. With our doctors. Our doctors have spouses, and the spouse may not be making as much money as the doctor, or may not make any money at all. You can have a spouse that's making $100,000 a year, you're making $600,000-$700,000 a year, and that entire income of that spouse is being going to taxes. So they feel that, okay, well, why work, right? Because we're not bringing this money home. We're just sending this money out to the federal government. So there's a lot of that. And then so that spouse that is at home that is not working, they need to have revenue some kind of way. The doctors are mostly working, 90% of their time is working. So the at-home spouse is usually the one that's going to spend all the money or try to use the resources. And so when that doctor comes home and says, hey, listen, I found a guy that can help us reduce our tax liability and it's going to cost this, that spouse is like, oh no, we can't move that over there because I need it over here. So the same is true when it comes to financial advisors.
What kinds of questions should people be asking when they're thinking about, well, how do I really know that somebody is promoting my best interest?
How much do they know about you? How much do they know about the integral parts of your life, what your goals and dreams are, aspirations? The questions is not more so what the client should be asking, is the client should be looking at how many questions is my advisor asking? Is the advisor being very curious about all of my affairs? Do they have a holistic picture of what I want to do? Have they factor in all of these points in the plan that they're recommending for me? And the more crafty that advisor is to incorporate all of the client's issues, their thoughts, their concerns into a holistic plan, the better that plan is. Just on its, I see a lot of advisors, including myself in the beginning, would give out advice without knowing enough about the client. In my career, it's happened. But during that particular time, it would always come back to bite me. But these are relationships here. These are not transactions. So the client comes back 5 years later and says, hey, that investment didn't fare well, or that advice didn't fare well now that I had time to go through it.